Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of Finn React. Michael here. Today we are looking at the Mortal Kombat X comic critique. Now I got recommended to do this video. Hopefully I did the right video. The person who watched this video, please comment below if I actually chose the right one or the wrong one. Anyway, so if you guys never read the Mortal Kombat X comic, it actually was pretty good. I've read it a couple years ago when I went to Florida. And it was on my Kindle. It's really the last time I actually read it. But I actually enjoyed it. It was a very different storyline than what we got from the actual video game. However, I guess there's some critiques that we didn't know about. So let's watch and enjoy the critiquing. We're not judging here today, guys. But it's not my normal stuff. But comment below, guys, if you want to see more on this channel. So let's watch.
As with Injustice, Mortal Kombat X received a prequel comic produced by DC Comics.
Yes.
However, rather than serving as a central pillar of the franchise and detailing a large gap of time that the game left unexplored, this 12-issue digital-first series told a standalone story that has nothing to do with MKX beyond character choices and designs, despite them having a full 20/25 year time gap to fill with various stories.
And there's a lot of characters that were actually mentioned in the comic that were not mentioned in the actual video game. There are some hints and Easter eggs that you guys will catch from it, but we did not get like characters like Havoc, Raiko, Kintaro. We didn't get those characters in the video game. They were referenced, but they were just not playable.
Let's finally talk about it. And yes, I know what Dominic Cianciolo said recently regarding this comic. He said it's not canon. Then he backpedaled and said it's canon as far as the game writers decide it is. Well, yeah, that's how multimedia works.
That's a lot of canons.
With the primary medium getting priority. Star Wars comics and games are canon, but if they contradict the movies take precedence. Really, he didn't need to specify any of this because it's so obvious. Then again, this is the MK fanbase we're talking about, so...
Our writer, his name is Dominic Cianciolo. I think he knows the Mortal Kombat lore maybe better than anyone.
Wait, why we're going slow? Hold on a sec.
Lore,
slow down a bit, game. Comics aren't canon. Yeah, they are. And then I guess, is the MKX comic canon? Also, thanks for making Havoc. You bet it's canon. MK11 leaves no doubt about that. I agree. Okay, hey Ed, are the comics considered canon? Ed Boon, yes.
Basically, everything in the comic is canon unless it's contradicted by the games, and a fair amount of it is. So let's begin.
Yeah.
There are two other major similarities to Injustice with this comic. First is the unavoidable feeling that things were intentionally left out of the game to make people read the comic in hopes of getting answers. Most prominently, why Goro is relegated to DLC and arcade sub-boss on the disc, but isn't actually anywhere to be seen in the story mode. The second similarity, on a somewhat related note, is the tendency to kill off established characters for no reason and to contradict the games in various ways. We see the first of these play out in the first scene of issue 1. Kenshi and his young son are being pursued by Red Dragon members, using bows instead of guns for some reason, led by Su Hao from Deadly Alliance.
No one likes Su Hao.
I could be wrong about this, but I do believe Su Hao is the single least popular character in the entire franchise.
I agree, 100%.
No one liked him, so he was dropped after one game and only came back in Armageddon because everyone did.
Yeah.
Su Hao claims Kenshi betrayed the Red Dragon, setting up some backstory for later on. Unfortunately, being digital first means the page layouts are very uniform, since 2 pages from that format are put together into 1 page of the A4 comic format. It means there are no full or double page spreads to emphasize key moments. It also affects story flow, as these comics release in 3 chapters per issue, meaning there need to be 2 crescendos in the middle of a story, and it can even jump to a completely separate story in the middle of the issue. It turns out this is shared IDU land. Scorpion then appears and punches through Su Hao's head while screaming, "Get out of here!"
Instead of his coming, "Get over here." Whatever. Su Hao, we don't miss you. No 07s for you.
I have 2 problems with this.
Why?
This is how bad the whole "get out of here" thing is. Yeah,
Why? It's fine. It's just saying get out of here.
was amusing in the MK movie when Scorpion said, "Get down here." I take his catchphrase, but this is just silly.
Get out of here!
And it's not the only time they do this. Sprinkled throughout the comic are various characters throwing out classic phrases from the series, and much like Smoke spouting "toasty" every 5 panels in the Malibu comics, it's very rare that any of it feels natural.
Aww.
Feeling Scorpion. Second is the very abrupt death of Sue Hao. I don't like him all that much either, but here's the thing. Curtis Stryker was never a popular character. He debuted...
Bullshit! He was a character. I mean, if I had to choose between Stryker and Sue Hao, I'd choose Stryker. I mean, I liked him from the cartoon. He was great in the MK9 series. Yeah, he did die in the anime TV movie thing they did, but, you know, things happen. He also came back for a cameo because people want him back.
As a cop who just shot people.
Yes.
Fans didn't take to him, so he was ignored until they brought everyone back for Armageddon. Midway used this opportunity with the characters that hadn't returned in Deadly Lights or Deception to reinvent them in certain ways. Stryker was given kind of a secret agent type jumpsuit as his default costume and a SWAT uniform as his alternate.
I liked it.
He didn't leave much of an impression. Since MK 2011 was retelling 1 to 3, they again brought him back. This time they went for a more straight-laced, badass cop approach, and fans responded quite well to him this time, to the point where there are fans who actually miss him in MK11. It took 16 years, but we finally had a Stryker we could get behind. Sue Hao was also...
The problem was that Stryker actually was relevant to the stories and everything else. Sue Hao is just a part of the Red Dragon. It's like Cobra and Kira. They're just there. Did they play a role in the MK storylines? No, they didn't play a role in the MK storyline. Sue Hao is just there for character. It's kind of like Jarek. Yes, he is the natural next Kano, but he dies in MK4.
Till Armageddon, but since that game reused character models from Deadly Lights and Deception, Sue Hao remained unchanged. He didn't return for 2011, and finally returned here solely to die in the opening scene to wet fanboy pants.
Exactly.
They never gave Sue Hao a second chance, while they gave Stryker 3. And this is my biggest problem with the comic. Never mind the inconsistencies, cringy dialogue, or fairly bad plot. The decision to kill off unpopular characters without giving them a second chance, like they did for the guy who was the least popular character from 1995 to 2002, shows an astounding laziness on the part of the creators.
I mean, come on, do we really want to keep seeing, like, Sue Hao? How relevant is Sue Hao compared to all these other characters? To me, Sue Hao is just useless. It's kind of like a lot of these Red Dragon members. I mean, it's like Darius. Darius is there. Was he relevant to the entire Mortal Kombat plot stories? Nothing. I mean, is Cobra relevant? No. Stryker was part of the group that defended Earthrealm from people like Quan Chi, Shang Tsung, Shao Kahn, etc., etc. A lot of these guys are just extra characters. It's kind of like Kai from MK4. Kai was just there. So, to me, a lot of these like characters, they say, oh, these characters are useless.
Bias against anything from the 3D era, since even the 3D era characters that are generally liked by the fan base and appeared in MKX barely do anything in this comic. You know, like, this is an alternate timeline. You could change Sue Hao a lot, and people would accept it.
No, we won't.
Trying something different to try and make him more appealing, but also because it's an alternate timeline. Things could be different here for whatever reason. You know, the Black Dragon didn't fall apart after the invasion like they did in the original timeline, so that could be used to justify Sue Hao being in a different position. Maybe he got fucked up more, became more of a cyborg, or whatever. But they didn't even try. Stryker was salvaged by refining his core concept, but since this is a comic and not a game set in a new timeline, they could have tried something more radical. Look at Street Fighter V and Seth. Seth was SF4's final boss, and he really didn't leave much of an impression. So they decided to put him in a new female body belonging to the mysterious Doll Zero, gave him some new moves, and presto, he's won fans over. NetherRealm had the opportunity...
Why do I... What?
And ability to do this. They pulled it off once, but it was evidently too much work, so they just gave up on the rest and let them be killed off. Well,
to be fair, he did come back as a relevant in MKX, so I mean, he did play more relevancy into the video game than people like Sue Hao.
contempt they show for aspects of their own franchise remains utterly astounding to me. Now, moving on. You may notice that Scorpion actually does use his default costume from the game here, unlike in the game's story mode.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why they did it this way, but I guess they had to make the costume canonical somewhere. Likewise, Kenshi's in his MK 2011 costume, which is another odd aesthetic choice since he's already switched to his Deadly Alliance style costume in the game's prologue by now. None of this is a contradiction, like with Injustice, just an oddity that's worth noting. The revived Shiraidu is elaborated on. Scorpion took in those who lost their families in the war with Shinnok. It's not clear how Kenshi's cover was blown for the Red Dragon to go after his son like this, but they did, and Kenshi arrived too late. Unfortunately, the flashback depicting her death is difficult to take seriously thanks to the edgy "you the bitch with Kenshi's bastard" line, and Suchin's own cringeworthy response, "I'm the bitch with a blade," right before she gets shot.
Which was actually kind of funny.
This is followed up by a nice little idea where Hanzo calls Takeda another survivor. It's a nice detail that he sees himself in the boy, and that's part of why he takes him on as his star pupil. It's also a small bit of foreshadowing for the direction the story takes towards the end. I do wish there was a bit more emphasis placed on the idea after this point though. I'm also surprised there's no point where Scorpion is reminded of his own son when he looks at Takeda. That could have made for a nice moment. Takeda is uneasy around Hanzo, but Kenshi claims that Hanzo conquered Scorpion years ago, a setup for a later plot point that really doesn't add up. Kenshi immediately leaves the traumatized boy in the care of the murderous ninja to seek revenge. It really feels like the MKX writers were actually spiteful about Kenshi's popularity despite being a 3D era character, and wanted to sabotage him by making him a pushover who never wins fights, and making him the worst dad ever.
Well, to be fair, I mean, Kenshi wasn't really the best father of the year compared to Johnny Cage, but I mean, he played a huge role. I was going to say he taught Takeda a lot. I think in the MKX they could have gone more into the in-depth of it. We only went maybe about a year ago from where they were currently, and we only got a plot of the training and all that stuff, but I feel like we could have gone more back, like kind of like with Kenshi, where Kenshi went further. Not Kenshi, Kung-Jin went back into the previous time when he was a thief. About the time when, well, actually, that was almost the same time as Kung Lao died by Shao Kahn one too many times.
Sub-Zero raids a Red Dragon Temple to obtain an old knife for Raiden. Kano attacks him from behind and cuts his face with a knife, leaving him with his iconic scar and infecting him with the curse
best
of the
scar
Kamidogi.
ever.
I'll come back to this later.
Why?
We then return to the Shiraidu Temple years ago, which suggests that Sub-Zero scene, which didn't specify a time at all, is not taking place at the same time. The later implication is that Sub-Zero's been running around with this dagger for a few years, and Raiden just never bothered to try and find him, which is stupid, given how important these daggers are revealed to be. Maybe that's why they removed this caption box in the trade release. Takeda spars with a fellow recruit named Fox. He loses, but with the transition to a few years later, I estimate around 7 years before the game, Takeda has greatly improved, though still not enough to beat Fox. Fox starts hearing ominous red voices in his head as Hanzo reveals he was recently visited by Raiden.
I always feel like Raiden plays a role in a lot of these characters. For no relevancy reason, Raiden's just there.
Raiden was checking on the dagger he'd entrusted to Hanzo, claiming that something had entered Earthrealm while its dimensional barriers were weakened by the invasion. Hanzo clearly doesn't like Raiden, seemingly holding it against him that so many heroes died. But it's not like Hanzo works alongside those people, so why does he care? Also, I'd have thought he might be a bit more amicable, given that Raiden restored his humanity. Later that night, Fox is compelled by the voice to steal the dagger and cut his own face off, butchering the other recruits before trying to kill Takeda. Fox already poisoned and captured Hanzo, who is reliving the past in his mind. We see Hanzo defending his village from a Lin Kuei attack before finding his wife and son frozen in a cartoonish block of ice. Let's get into this.
It would have been kind of cool relevancy to see like if Fox was actually a relevant character in the Mortal Kombat storyline. Because I feel like they like brought the relevancy to a lot of these characters that were kind of like Jackie Briggs, Cassie Cage, Kung Jin, Takeshi, and it was like, what did they have relevancy to? I don't know. We just want to put them in video games because they're Spawn and stuff. What about someone like Fox? Who? I think Fox would have been kind of cool to be like a version of Havoc, you know, with the whole skull face and all that stuff. That would have been kind of cool, but you know, I guess it's not what they wanted to go for in the video game. Maybe not delay it, but make it longer and relevant. I don't know.
spot wrong here. First off, Bihan has Kuai Liang's costume, but I can forgive that since 2011 did the same thing when it depicted the fake death of Scorpion's family. Can't blame the contractors when the full-time staff get it wrong first.
Yeah.
Second, they look like they got hit with a freezy in a game of Smash. Third, what the fuck is up with the lengths of Hanzo's fingers, and why does it remind me of that one panel where Batman looked like he'd transformed into an After Effects filter? And then we have the big one, Kana and Jubei. Scorpion's family, despite being established back in 1992, did not have names until 2011, discounting their Korean counterparts in the Jeff Rovin novel. MK Legacy named them Kana and Jubei. MKX then gave them the canonical names Harumi and Satoshi. The comic uses the names from the web series instead of the games. I'm going to be giving writer Sean Kittleson a lot of shit over the course of this video for his mistakes, but know that when I do, I'm also criticising NetherRealm.
So what's their names? I'm kind of confused.
Came out 3 months after the comic started, the same day as chapter 15, which is the end of issue 5. As such, I'm willing to let him off for continuity issues with MKX up to the end of issue 6, which had probably already been written by then. As an outsider to NetherRealm at the time, there was no way Sean could have known about the canon names without someone at NetherRealm telling him. All he had to work with was that the web series had used these names. Whether he thought those were the canonical names or just thought he may as well use them since there was nothing official yet, someone at NetherRealm should have checked his script, pointed out the mistake, and made a correction. Without being shown the cutscenes or receiving notes from NetherRealm, there's no way he could have known what was going on in MKX prior to release. So this rather large flub is 100% not Sean's fault unless corrections were made and he ignored them. I doubt he'd have been hired by NetherRealm if that had been the case. We could probably hold him accountable for his awful excuse for the error though. He claimed Kana and Jubei were pet names for Harumi and Satoshi. No. Sean, no. I can tell this isn't real, but it suggested that this really did happen, aside from Sub-Zero taunting him, which isn't true. Quan Chi did this after Hanzo was already dead. Even if Sean thought Quan Chi's lie in 2011 was true, Scorpion wasn't there. I let Sean off with inconsistencies with MKX, but for inconsistencies with any prior game, that's on him as well as NetherRealm. He should have known better. Hanzo reawakens his Hellspawn powers, which I was under the impression he didn't have anymore, given how he blatantly reverted to human alongside Sub-Zero and Jax. Then again, NetherRealm thinks he's a Revenant, so they probably think he was born with his Hellspawn powers. And no, him using them in MK11 doesn't invalidate what I'm saying here. Also, we don't see him remove or put his face back on, the latter of which has never been seen to my knowledge, so I think his head just transforms like Ghost Rider now. After burning
that'd be kind of cool
with the dagger, because this is post-reboot MK where you have to kill a person in 3 different ways for it to count. This only makes him stronger, and he alludes to Raiden knowing more about the dagger's power and its connection to Quan Chi, the latter of which is never brought up again. Takeda splits Fox in 2, and after burning the bodies, the 2 survivors depart to get answers from Raiden. Raiden is with Fujin at the Sky Temple. He cuts himself with the Kamidogu of Order to improve his senses so he can get a preview of later issue, find the demon. He receives visions of various events, but only
Wait, slow down a second. Before we get a little bit ahead of ourselves, let's check out what we got. First of all, I guess Reiko and Melina had a thing together. Kind of weird. Sub-Zero fighting the Cyber Initiative. Okay. Kano stabbing a hand of Goro's friend. And Jax and Jackie Briggs. I'm more confused about the Melina Reiko thing. That's kind of weird.
Even matter to the story, and the rest are either filler or not part of the comic.
Okay, so wait, go back.
But only a few even matter to the story, and the rest are either filler.
And there we go. So it looks like Takeda and Scorpion are trailing for Raiden, like we talked about. Kintaro with his group, it looks like Reptile and Farron Tor, and Cassie getting to a cage fight with Frost, I believe. Interesting.
Not part of the comic. Like, is this hinting that Kano would use the Kamidogu on some Shokan to make them stronger, even though he doesn't?
No.
Guess we should address that, right? The Kamidogu were introduced in Deception, as the artifacts Shujinko's quest revolved around in Conquest mode. They were mystical emblems that...
I think I have Deception somewhere, but I never played it. Comment below, guys. You want me to play Deception on my Finn Gaming channel? By the way, you guys need to go to the link and find that one because it's actually relevant, but comment below.
Presented the 6 realms and were the key to fusing them. Here though, they are bafflingly turned into a set of daggers used for blood magic. Why they were referred to as Kamidogu when they're very clearly not, I've got no idea.
What is the Kamidogu anyway? I'm kind of confused about that. I know they explain it, but isn't there actually like a weapon called the Kamidogu? Oh, so it's actually only relevant to, literally means God tool or divine equipment, which is, I guess, relevant in some way. Still makes no sense, but whatever.
Is implying that these are the same artifacts from Deception, or is Kamidogu now a broader term for a type of artifact? It's such a bizarre alteration, and nothing would change in the story if they were given different names.
Maybe a transform into a weapon, like a dagger, like the Kamidogus were represented to become weapons for the future of the game. That was not relevant.
Of Netherrealm retcons, honestly. Issue 2 opens with Raiden healing Fujin's wounded gut, which I guess was caused by Raiden when he used the dagger. Raiden's arm is also wounded, which he claims is the price he paid for invoking the Elder Gods with blood magic. And why he needed to use blood magic when he's always been able to just teleport to the Elder Gods domain, I've no idea. We cut to Johnny Cage's condo, where Cassie and Jackie are sparring in the living room. Jackie is apparently using kickboxing as her style, even though that wasn't part of her repertoire until MK11. Jackie
never really mentioned that, saw that till now, so good catch.
Cassie with a gut punch, only to receive a shadow kick in return, which seems to send Cassie flying back more than Jackie somehow. We learn that Johnny's very forgiving of Cassie, while Sonya's more of a hard ass. Sonya meets with Kotal Khan, who claims to have been at war with Melina for 10 years. By the time of the game, it's apparently been 5, but I can't hold MKX's inability to keep the timeline straight against Sean. Kotal explains that Melina is working with the Red Dragon, and very awkwardly introduces D'Vorah and Aaron Black. Sonya refuses to help, and D'Vorah unironically uses the word says. She attacks Sonya, who rips off her pincer and kicks her in the jaw, shown in X-ray, which is an effect that will pop up every now and then for the rest of the comic. They're left at a standoff, and we cut back to Cassie and Jackie, who aren't 21 yet according to Jackie. Jackie's worried about getting caught and kicked out of training, saying Jax doesn't take bad news well. I was under the impression he didn't want her in the SF to begin with.
I don't have any right to.
You knew what I wanted.
Jackie volunteered. She came to me.
When I joined SF, Mr. Cage insisted on being the one to tell my dad. My dad came home with a broken jaw.
Yeah.
Cassie uses her name to get inside, and we see that it's an all-female fight club. It's kind of like that one episode of Justice League Unlimited, only with a less interesting roster, and people die here. Such an extremely illegal event.
Oh, lovely.
A club accessible from the street and not a secret underground hideout reminds me of how the MK cast are all psychotic, murderous arseholes in DCU. Yeah, the games prioritize ultra-violence and violent finishing moves, but the good guys are more traditionally heroic, and Earthrealm isn't lacking in real-world morals. Cassie tries to back out, but is forced to fight Frost, who seems to be about Cassie's age here, even though she was this age or older in the old timeline. At the time, Cassie would have been about 7.
But what about the part, like the side character moment in the video game where they kind of show Frost? She did sound of mid-age to Cassie, but at the same time, it didn't really I was going to say, she looked tiny too, so.
She quotes MK2 Shao Kahn. Go home, Sean. Back to Sonya, they're still fighting, so Raiden shows up and maybe references the movie, but in context, it's fine. So Raiden shows up and maybe references the movie, but in context, it's fine. Raiden refers to Sonya by her first name, which isn't something he does. He uses full names at all times, but the comic doesn't do that. Back with the fights, Frost is dominating and doing the typical "fuck you, rich girl, your life is perfect" crap, and Cassie immediately turns it around and wins. Cassie refuses to finish Frost until Jackie is threatened, at which point she relents, but she's saved by the Black Dragon showing up and murdering people at random. I wonder if it's down to the digital...
Wait, we'll go back.
But she's saved by the Black Dragon showing up and murdering people at random.
So that's Jarek. Who the fuck is this girl? I like her though.
I wonder if it's down to the digital first format, but this whole thing goes by really quick. I think the scene would have been more effective if it had more room to breathe. It never would have been as powerful as Saejima refusing to kill an opponent in Yakuza 4, given the lack of build-up, but it would still feel more like a real moment than a scene from the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. Jackie gets free with little effort after the guard tries to call her a bitch, and she helps Cassie get Frost into the alley where they dump her. Jarek and Tasia catch up to them, and Cassie takes a selfie to leave a trail, which Sonya finds when she picks up Cassie's phone and sees a picture of Aaron Black. The time is kind of weird, now that I think about it. I didn't even script this, I just realised this while recording. Aaron was just with Sonya at the same time Cassie was in the club. So I guess he left with Kotal and Devora, and then immediately went to meet up with the Black Dragon to help capture Cassie. That doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
Sonya wants to call in Johnny, who she's calling by his first name, when MKX uses her willingness to call him that rather than Cage to symbolise the state of their relationship, which is currently in the very rocky Cage territory. Then we smash cut to an unrelated flashback to explain the history of the Oshtek, who were apparently conquered while Khan was going after Earthrealm, since Goro is fighting alongside him and he signed up less than 5 centuries ago. I don't think it's ever been stated that he can't engage in mortal combat with more than one realm at a time, but we can probably assume that's the case. Kotal Khan's father, Kotal Ketz, appears here, suggesting that Kotal is the family name, so we have no idea what the son's given name actually is.
No.
Everyone just calls him Kotal. Maybe Ketz is the Oshtek equivalent of a Khan? Throughout all this, Kotal and his father are blue, even when in private, suggesting that the colorist may not have known it was body paint. After being conquered, Kotal is sent by his father to Earthrealm as a rite of passage. By chance, Kotal arrives to find a Mayan settlement, which is also attacked by the Spanish that same day, setting this around 1517 or so, meaning Goro shouldn't have been with Khan here. Kotal teaches the Maya to fight off the Spanish, and he becomes their god, Buluk Shabtan. An interesting idea that I'd love to see expanded into a full issue instead of the closing third of an unrelated issue. Maybe then, Kotal returning to Outworld, being chastised by his father, and going straight back to find the Maya dead from smallpox might have come off a tad less comedic.
What?
Where Reiko reports to Melina that the Red Dragon have agreed to their terms, and Goro agrees to kill Kotal for her.
Wait, does that mean that Melina and Goro had a thing together now? I'm so confused. What did Melina play a role in? I forgot. She won with every guy I see.
3 opens with Kotal sending his father, armed with Shao Kahn's hammer, to deal with Goro and Melina. Ketz calls his son Kotal, which makes the name thing even more confusing. The best I can figure is that Ketz is a title used by the Oshtek, Kotal is the last of the Ketzes, and his son Kotal Jr. is the Khan of Outworld. I'd love to hear what lame explanation Sean has for this one. There's confirmation that Reiko and Melina are fucking, and Reiko...
What? Excuse me?
To hear what lame explanation Sean has for this one. We get confirmation that
Reiko and I served together for decades. He did jeans with Scrupples. My spies report he seduced Melina to become her closest advisor. They also discovered... So they did... Okay, Melina is a swinger. No offense. Geez, she likes to play on all sides of the story. She likes 2 arms. She likes 4 arms. She likes human faces. She likes Goro faces. What doesn't she like? Me.
Melina are fucking, and Reiko has Rain control the weather to block the sun and weaken Ketz. Ketz hits Goro, who quotes classic Khan. The Red Dragon attacks the Oshtek, freeing Goro to crush Ketz's head with the hammer. The enraged Kotal invokes the gods before gods and the Blood Code to power himself up in his pursuit of revenge. I'm fairly certain the Blood Code is a reference to the Blood Code from the Mega Drive version of MK1, and that's cute and all, but the term Blood Code isn't really explained in the comic. What is the code part of the Blood Code?
Good question.
Follow. Melina uses the word Khanum in a way that suggests it's the throne or domain of the Khan, as Ketz did a little earlier. In the game, it's the female equivalent of a Khan. I've covered this on Misconceptions. Reiko claims Goro is plotting against
Have to check
Melina
that out.
with no evidence, and Melina believes him enough to take off her mask and say she'll eat Goro's face, only to have the mask back on in the next panel. Yeah, she's obviously supposed to have put the mask back on between panels, but without at least having her hand on her mask as if she's putting it back in place, it feels weird. It feels like something is missing.
Not really. I was gonna say I didn't really feel that bad over it, but I mean, it's just cutscene. I mean, not every every clothing or everything's gonna be intact, but I do like this rain though. I think this was in MK9 rain, which was actually kind of cool.
Rain tried the same tactic with the weather, but Kotal's blood magic supersedes his sunlight powers, allowing him to horrifically burn Rain with sunlight. As the two square off, Goro claims
Rain got dried out.
Subservience, which is why the Shokan have always served others outside of forming alliances with Kitana, and even then, she's clearly top dog in those instances.
True.
She also takes all of Goro's arms, great way to promote the pre-order character, guys, and denies him the dignity of death. If you're wondering how Goro's husk still has all 4 of his arms in MK11, that's because it was supposed to be addressed in the 2nd season of the comic. That never happened. Sonya shoots Kotal and demands to know who her daughter is. The next page then repeats this, indicating the start of a new chapter. In that format, it works fine, but in the collected issues, it feels awkward, like watching a moment be repeated after the ad break when watching an episode on DVD. Johnny is with Sonia, and he's able to get Kotal to cooperate. Kotal even shows a rare bit of genuine nobility by sympathising with their plight, having just lost his own family. Strange that he normally comes off much more disingenuously. Of course, the moment is hampered by the picture Cassie took of Erin being totally different from the one seen in issue 2. Johnny's glove is missing in this panel, but if story continuity is unreasonable to expect from MK,
it came back.
The art have consistency. Cassie and Jackie try to escape, but Kano puts a stop to it and explains that his cyber eye is new, having replaced it a few years ago. The old one, which looks exactly like this one, got destroyed by Sub-Zero. My guess is that the intent was for it to be the one from 2011 that was destroyed, but that detail wasn't included in the script or not even conceived until later, so the artist had no idea and just drew MKX Kano as is.
Yeah.
The flashback does reveal that the Kamidogu daggers possess whoever they cut, which is set up for plot down the line. For now, the Red Dragon attack, and we cut to Hanzo and Takeda outside the Sky Temple getting attacked by Raiden. The next issue prompts him to depict Scorpion Unleashed because the comic has no idea what Scorpion even is. Issue 4 opens with Hanzo getting stomped by the possessed Raiden. We flash back a few weeks to the two ninja trekking through the Himalayas, with Takeda comparing being possessed by the Blood Code to Hanzo and Scorpion. Hanzo calls his Hellfire a curse, and we flash back even further to his death, according to the comic. Bihan holds Hanzo's severed head up to the frozen form of his wife and son. Harumi's expression is serene here, despite the fact that she was attacked and frozen to death, so she should have a look of pain, terror, or at least recognition on her face. She should...
So, what? Whatever, I was gonna say, Scorpion's death is still questionable. What exactly happened?
Look like she's staring lovingly into her husband's eyes. And of course, she
Literally.
didn't have that expression in issue 1. Hanzo explains that Quan Chi didn't control him. He simply stoked the flames of his vengeance, and Scorpion was born. I can forgive how goofy and unfitting Bihan's final words are here. I can forgive the endurance match from Liu Kang's chapter being depicted in the wrong stage. I cannot, however, forgive that this comic has a woefully inaccurate concept of the character of Scorpion. The comic is under the impression that Scorpion is the fighting game staple, the superpowered Darkseid character, like...
Whoa, we gotta look at that list of people. So we have...
Comic is under the impression that Scorpion is the fighting...
Wow, that's a lot of relevancy, relations to it. Definitely Nightmare, my favorite Soul Calibur character.
Staple, the superpowered Darkseid character, like Evil Ryu or Devil Jin. Hanzo claims
Yes.
he has to relive the moment he lost his family to fuel his hellfire, but risks going evil when he does. The Spectre Scorpion is just a stage of Hanzo's life, or rather... Spectre Scorpion is just a stage of Hanzo's life, or rather unlife. He died and returned for vengeance, then continued to serve his evil benefactor because he had nothing else. His mind wasn't altered in any way by Quan Chi, nor is there a secret other person locked deep within his mind. Where Sean got this idea from, I've no idea, because the games have never approached the character this way, and I feel it both makes him more generic as a fighting game character, and weakens his arc by insinuating, perhaps unintentionally, that Hanzo isn't really accountable for his actions. The character's arc in the NetherRealm timeline is him learning to let go of his hate, to let go of the past and look towards the future. Instead of obsessing over avenging his dead clan, he forms a new one to fight the dark forces he once served. That desire for revenge is still there, of course, and he does have a lapse in judgment when he indulges in it, dooming the remaining revenants forever. But
Exactly.
that's just a simple human mistake that anyone could relate to, not some mystical alternate persona he has to resist letting take over. Scorpion isn't the devil gene. Scorpion is a phase of Hanzo's life that he's ashamed of and is trying to redeem himself for. And in the end, as co-written by Sean himself in MK11, he does exactly that. While I prefer the original timeline take, NetherRealm Scorpion, while rocky at first, was one of the few characters with a solid arc throughout, and it's abundantly clear that Sean did not understand the character when he wrote this comic.
I agree.
He educated himself before he worked on MK11, and the results, when isolated from the rest of that dumpster fire, show his willingness and ability to learn and
Dumpster
improve.
fire.
But, as is often the case, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Back in the present, Hanzo teleports himself and Takeda away from Raiden, and the flashback resumes, with Hanzo explaining that Kenshi helped him deal with his rage. An interesting idea that parallels Kenshi helping Ermac in the original timeline, but we sadly never get to see this.
No.
Hanzo returns to take the dagger from Raiden with the line, "Gimme that." That line doesn't fit Hanzo. Characters in MK are written in a certain way that I don't think Sean fully grasped yet. Ninjas, monks, and other realmers speak in a very formal manner, especially the wiser characters like Grandmaster Hasashi. He should not be saying gimme. It sounds silly
Gimme!
from him. Raiden asks how much fire Hanzo has left from all his teleporting, as if he has a limited amount that needs to be recharged.
Yeah.
I think the idea is supposed to be that the more he dips into Scorpion's power, the more hold Scorpion has over him, but the wording makes it sound like the Hellfire is keeping Scorpion at bay until he runs out.
Kind of sounds like Ghost Rider in a way, because I feel like with Ghost Rider, it's kind of like the relevancy of like, I'm this big badass guy or a normal person, and all of a sudden twist comes to shove, whatever the expression is, push comes to shove, I'm Scorpion, I'm about to F your life up.
Hanzo beats down Raiden and says he hopes it hurts because he's Edgelord Devil Hanzo now. He somehow thinks Raiden's electricity killed Takeda earlier, despite the fact that he teleported Takeda out of there. So surely
Technically, he didn't die.
Raiden regains his senses and they take Takeda to the Jinsei chamber to heal. He's apparently basically dead, but resisting his soul being taken to the Netherrealm. Raiden explains that the Elder Gods shield.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you imagine that? What? You're going up there? No, I'm not.
Which currently contains the fallen god himself in a dark dimension, which was locked by the Kamidogu, which again are daggers in this comic. These
Exactly.
daggers supposedly tasted the blood of the one being, which is probably the most accurate thing.
As Kittlin said, it never explicitly stated, however, the battle between the one being and the Elder Gods happened in each and every timeline. Those timelines, at least until she's defeated, are of Chronica's design. Thus, she and the other Titans are above the one being. What?
Said regarding the one being since the Netherrealm era started. The daggers were given Raiden's blood to power them, and Raiden had them separated. It's worth noting that the Kamidogu representing the 6 main realms never comes up beyond giving them names, so there was no reason to call them Kamidogu. As such, I will not be doing so from this point on.
Cool.
We cut to Indonesia, where Sub-Zero is being pursued by Lin Kuei cyborgs using the dagger he was cut with to augment his power and dispatch them easily. Raiden claims whoever corrupted the daggers is aiming for Shinnok's amulets without any real evidence to back this up. Maybe they just want the power of the blood god that the mysterious dagger voice claims is coming. Reiko speaks with a mysterious partner, and we learn he's only using Melina, as most do, to get the daggers and become the blood god.
No!
Awkward comedy bit with the SF and Kotal's group, they find Eren strung up. We flash back to the black and red dragon standoff, the black looking to deliver the girls to Kotal, and the red to Reiko. Mavado uses hook swords with no hooks, which kind of removes one of the weapon's main advantages. Cassie even calls him Captain Hook, if the weapon does have them. Kano flees after saying Eren could never be Black Dragon. Oops. Also, let's not forget that Eren and the girls show no signs of knowing each other in MKX. Oops. Mavado
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
cuts Eren down, and then the girls start killing everyone, even violently cutting Mavado open with his own weapon. I remind you, they're about
I kind of like that sword variation weapon of Mavado.
17 to 19, and no one bats an eye at this.
No.
The girls are captured off panel, and Eren is left to tell the others to go to Shang Tsung's island. Then we finally learn the one pulling the strings is Havoc from Deception.
Yeah.
Although you could guess this earlier in the issue if you noted Reiko calling him a cleric. Thus ends the Blood Ties arc, and the Blood Gods arc begins in issue 5, where Kotal ponders how to make up for this offense against Earthrealm. Sure is a shame he doesn't consider the same after MKX. Also, Ferret is here with Green Tor. Strange. Johnny, now wearing his prologue outfit from MKX instead of the default, tries to comfort Sonya, but she tells him to fuck off because Sonya has to be a prick at almost all times in the
Yes,
era.
very
Also
true.
claims to be the last of the Oshtek, suggesting the Oshtek in the game are just dressed in tribute or another continuity error. Kotal offers a ship to the island, but says the SF will have to help fight off the Shokan retaliatory attack, which includes Kintaro and Shiva.
Yes.
Over in Japan, Hanzo claims his loss to Sub-Zero in Outworlds was a technical loss since they were interrupted. This feels less like a legitimate interpretation of that scene and more an excuse to wipe a loss from a character's record, like Nightwolf claiming he let Scorpion win in the tournament and put Earthrealm at risk. The entire city has been frozen by Sub-Zero.
I never noticed that.
Powers. Hanzo and Takeda find him at a hilltop shrine where Sub-Zero claims Hanzo's used a lot of Hellfire, which means Scorpion is getting stronger. I'll try not to
that
harp on
good?
this too much. Havoc is revealed as the one controlling the Possessed, doing something in the flash pits on Shang Tsung's island. He wants Hanzo's soul and makes as big a deal of Scorpion and Sub-Zero's rematch as Lex did of Clark and Bruce meeting in BVS, and like the latter scene, this one only holds significance for the audience.
Terrible
not for the
movie.
characters in
Please
the
move
universe.
on.
Scorpion and Kuai Liang met one time while the latter had free will, and then spent 2 years together as allies under Quan Chi. They barely know each other. The two rivals fight, and we get the unintentionally hilarious 2 panels where Sub-Zero tells Scorpion to get over here, and Scorpion appears behind him looking annoyed that this guy stole his bit.
That is true. He did steal his line.
Use of iconic phrases. Sub-Zero calls Scorpion a wraith when he's a spectre, or a revenant if you foolishly trust MKX. You know, maybe it's intended to be used as a general term for a dead person, but wraiths are a thing that exists in MK, so you can't just use the word like that. Same with Demigod. Sub-Zero seems surprised that he's not holding the dagger after he intentionally dropped it to pull Scorpion's chains out of his chest because he's a fucking idiot. Sub-Zero freezes the whole area and comes to his senses just in time for Scorpion to break free. Back in Outworld, the Shokan are joined by Oni, but we don't get much variety in their designs, just big and troll-like. Johnny's changed back to his other outfit just in time for Kintaro to dismiss Devora on grounds of gender when she parleys with him. Because that's not a forced and overdone angle for a villain, and it's not even set up for later on when he serves under and is saved by a woman, so what was the point? So shows some real character by worrying when Johnny's position is attacked by an Oni. Sub-Zero calls the Lin Kuei cyber bastards, and Scorpion summons undead Shiraidu, I guess. Yeah, he kinda did this in Armageddon, but they were already revived by the Elder Gods in that state. Scorpion himself doesn't have any powers like that. Scorpion to burn him, but Takeda talks him down from finishing him.
Terrible game, by the way.
Sub-Zero to bleed out in a dragon logo-shaped pool of blood, which is more than a bit silly.
Yeah, I agree. That's a little bit silly just looking at that right now.
6 opens with Sub-Zero flashing back to 2011. Dialogue is added to his victory over Scorpion, and it reinforces that Hanzo was lying about it being a technical loss since Khan is telling Sub-Zero to finish him, meaning the fight is over. Also, despite this being set in Sub-Zero's chapter, he's on the player 2 side of the stage, which has never happened in a NetherRealm game. Come on guys, get it together. It skims over his cyberization and death with unnecessary dialogue additions like the classic die from Sindel.
Yeah.
Has Smoke and Jax holding Sub-Zero as he rebuilds him in flesh.
Whom do you serve?
Sub-Zero is resisting, suggesting the scene in Raiden's chapter where he appears with the others under Quan Chi's control hasn't happened yet, despite him still being a cyborg in that scene. Also, Jax is in his MKX Revenant form, not the one from 2011. But then again, it's possible that the Revenant forms were just completely retconned by MKX, so who knows. Quan Chi says you can't trust technology, making one wonder why Jax is allowed to keep the cyber arms, and this contradicts Sub-Zero's claim in MKX that he chose his human form as a Revenant.
I chose my Revenant form.
Then we see the flashback from Sonya's chapter, and everything's wrong. Sub-Zero, Sonya, and Raiden are all in the wrong costumes. Raiden uses his magic to liberate the Revenants while Sonya's still fighting Quan Chi, instead of while Sonya's stomping on Quan Chi's dick. And Jax and Scorpion are still fighting and killing soldiers instead of Sub-Zero freezing them all at the start, and then the three getting knocked out. I guess I could accept the costumes being wrong here. You know, maybe the artist wasn't shown the actual scene or the costumes in question, so he had to just use the defaults. But surely if Sean knew about this specific scene before release, he must have been shown a preview of it or been given a copy of its script. We learn that Raiden took Sub-Zero to the Sky Temple to recover, then sent him to get the dagger a few days later. God, this guy's existence is just one long nightmarish chain of mind control. You think Timeline Smoke had it bad, going from cyberization under Lin Kuei control to being reprogrammed under Noob's control, or NetherRealm Sindel going from Quan Chi's control to Quan Chi's control, but Sub-Zero was cyberized under Lin Kuei control, freed for less than a day before being killed and turned into a Revenant for 2 years, then being freed and winding up possessed by the dagger just a few days later, and that lasts from around the time Cassie Cage was conceived up until after she's finished high school. Yes, NetherRealm hates Sub-Zero, can confirm. He survived Williams thanks to Ball Show quite randomly. Raiden claims Hanzo spurred Sub-Zero by running him through and burning him, then leaving him to bleed out. God of useless. He sends Hanzo to the Kang Shaolin.
He is kind of god of useless.
While he meets with Jax to get the Earthrealm one. Why he can't just teleport all three of them to each location, I don't know. Maybe the dagger messed with his head to make him split them up? Reiko confronts Jax in a one-to-one recreation of his Armageddon render pose. They already know each other by name for some reason. In the Outworld battle, Sony's entire squad dies aside from her and Johnny while Kotal fights Goro's father, King Gorbak. This is, I think, the first appearance or even mention of the character since 1995. Wow. Also got his colours fixed, hooray! Gorbak tells Kotal to test his might, and Kotal's disgust empowers him to crush Gorbak's skull and, I think, drink his blood? The Shokan retreat, and
he likes drinking blood, apparently.
Kotal's dabbling in blood magic. This doesn't go anywhere, and he doesn't stop doing it by the time of the game. Johnny and Sonya get
True.
a moment while she tends to his wounds, and it's handled alright. Kotal uses the phrase "finish him," and we cut to Goro losing his claim to the Shokan throne. The contest will be held to crown a new ruler, while Goro leaves to set up the second season of the comic that never happened. Scarlet steals Kotal's dagger during the battle for Havoc, who agrees to teach her blood magic in time. Another thing MK11 couldn't get right.
It's why Shao Kahn taught me blood magic.
Scarlet is one of the few
True.
characters to be given a new outfit for the comic, this being a black bodysuit that was later added to MK11 as DLC, where it looks a lot better than in the comic. Why this was done, I don't know, because this was at a time when NetherRealm weren't embarrassed by the skimpier costumes of the female cast. Let's put aside the fact that it makes more sense for her
We
to
don't
keep her
question
skin
it.
exposed based on how her powers work. This thing is just ugly. They could have at least made it half red. Even Jade's ugly brown costume in 11 has more green on it than this has red in the comic.
True.
Havoc reveals that he plans to extract the Kekkei Genkai of the Cage Clan from Cassie, which doesn't go anywhere at all despite being the note they end the issue on. Havoc just seems to want all sources of power at once. Issue 7 gives Reptile a flashback to the tournament. He's in his MKX form, Johnny's in the wrong costume, and the courtyard has a roof despite being an iconic stage without one since 1992. So after his constant failures, Reptile was supposed to be assassinated by Kotal on Khan's orders, but he refused and asked for Reptile to serve under him, which Khan allowed despite Kotal actively disobeying a direct order. I guess Reptile was serving under Kotal in the invasion then? And yes, MK11 bungled this as well. Then we learn Kotal saved Farah and Tor from Tarkatans and they ate them. Then Devora reminisces about Khan's invasion of the Arnyek Islands, home of the Kaitin. Goro is with Khan, setting this during the current tournament cycle. It's not clear if the Arnyek Islands are a realm or just a part of Outworld not yet conquered. With Goro being present, the latter would seem to be a continuity error, but I don't accept this as a retcon of Goro working for Shao Kahn before the Earthrealm tournament cycle, because Shang Tsung recruiting Goro was a game changer for that tournament cycle.
That is very true. I think the fact that Shang Tsung got Goro on his side was probably a huge benefit of the entire tournament.
Khan were already under Khan's employ, why would they not have already been taking part by the time Kung Lao entered? And I know 2011 retcon Shiva being Sindel's bodyguard from just during MK3 to back when she was married to Khan, but I still refuse. This is the recurring problem with the retcons of the NetherRealm era. They don't think at all about the implications of the things they're changing. At least the artist gained some redemption by putting Khan in his classic look instead of the inferior modern ones. Then the scene where Kotal rebelled is depicted, with everyone in their default outfits aside from Reptile, and taking place in a street, not a building. Also, Reptile and Devora are depicted throughout with red blood. The game was out by now, so there are no excuses for errors like this anymore. Despite these trips down memory lane though, that's still insistent on using the next attack alone and dying with honor, but Kano and the Black Dragon arrive to help. Now
so we have Jarek, Tremor, Kano, and who the is this supposed to be Lee May? I'm kind of confused. I doubt it's Lee May, but who the fuck is this girl?
Tremor since he was being planned as DLC for the game.
True.
Raiden finds a hole in Jax's home and Jax injured. Vera shows up, marking her single canonical appearance in the franchise and the only one outside of Jax's MK11 ending. She explains that they gave the dagger to Reiko so he wouldn't kill Vera and Jackie. Raiden continues to use everyone's first name and it's weird. Meanwhile, Scarlet is beating up Jackie but now in her 2011 outfit with a weird black bit added to her midsection. Havoc claims that Raiden is unwittingly helping them by gathering the daggers. Kintaro, looking way more cat-like than in any game, denies Kotal's challenge of single combat, saying there will only be fatalities.
That's a terrible
Trevor
design.
Gets to show off his power briefly to make people want to buy him, then we move to Johnny and Sonya. Again, we get a nice little moment where Sonya worries about what leaving things to Kano will cause, and Johnny convinces her they can't save everyone, so they should save what matters most. Then Kano nukes the Shokan and Kotal orders his army to finish them. Are you starting to see how tiring the constant stream of classic words and phrases from the series gets?
It's okay.
Melina at Rain's bedside, where Ermac enters to report on Kotal's victory. First problem, Rain's concern over Reiko's betrayal seems too genuine, given how Rain is just using Melina in the game. Could just be my interpretation, so I'll let it stand.
Did he use her in a game? I don't remember.
Second problem, Melina now sports her MKX mouth when it was clearly the classic mouth in her earlier appearance. Was the new mouth just not shown off pre-release? Is that how that happened? No explanation is offered. Third problem, Ermac shouldn't be here since he defected when Kotal's reign began. Once again, there is no excuse for this since the game was out already. Even if NetherRealm didn't provide any assistance, Sean should have done research by at least watching the cutscenes on YouTube. Even Ermac seems disgusted by this.
Yeah.
Kotal manages to turn the Shokan into allies against Melina and Reiko and turns on Kano when he tries to bargain with a portal stone. Tremor is then shot in the back by Sonya, and since he never appears again, I guess he dies? Kotal then sends the Black Dragon to the dungeon, making one wonder why he'd agree to work with them again in the game. Kano makes it clear Cassie isn't legal age, so I guess she's under 18, so again, I don't know why no one bats an eye at her brutality against Movado. At the camp
Because no one questioned it.
not to admit Liu Kang beat him in the tournament, and Shujinko arrives. He says they can't trust Raiden, but he does trust Havoc, who has a human face now. Scorpion recognizes him immediately.
Yeah, so I say I prefer the human face and the skull face.
And telling him about Kenshi and Dagon, while Hanzo denies Havoc's claims of Raiden's treachery. Havoc rips off the fake face, I guess, and uses the "Who's Next" tagline from the game. Then Shujinko is revealed to be possessed and attacks Takeda. Despite this, he's still treated with more respect than any other 3D era character included in this damn comic. At the Sky Temple, Fujin reports that Shang Tsung's island has a barrier similar to Raiden's around it. Raiden is rejected by the Jinsei, even though it doesn't reject Shinnok's corruption in the game. Another little moment between Johnny and Sonya is ruined when Sonya discovers Kotal bringing Kano's WMD onto the ship. Reiko powers himself up with 2 daggers. Johnny and Sonya reminisce about their relationship. Johnny asked her out the night they beat Shinnok, and she agreed. That was it until, months later, Sonya showed up on Johnny's doorstep in an apartment complex where the NetherRealm devs live. I'll put aside how off the positions of Johnny's nipples look to say that the repeated dialogue between this and the previous scene, but with entirely different intent and context, is a nice touch. However, Sonya told Johnny she was pregnant, suggesting they only got married for that reason. Again, research failed because the game was quite clear that Sonya was in love with him.
That is true. It's kind of weird the fact that in the comics they kind of delayed that whole love kind of situation between the two. The fact that they marry is that in the video game they kind of did it right. I mean, at times they were kind of like at each other's throats, and other times they were kind of like, I love you too. To me, I think it was both the comics and the video game was very confusing because you never know how they really feel about one another.
No, he's mine.
If that line had been in the comic, it would have been something like,
Johnny Cage's soul is mine.
And I've addressed before that I
That'd be kind of cool.
upset Johnny and Sonya getting together over the pregnancy before this scene, as that suggests Sonya is pregnant when she whoops the asses of Quan Chi and 2 of his toughest revenants, or that there's a year gap between Cassie and Jackie, who was conceived sometime after Jax's restoration here. We jump forward a few years.
Wow, that's a
Sonya
lot.
having to leave home and miss Cassie's birthday to extract Kenshi from his undercover mission, since she's the one who sent him. This shows the cracks in the marriage, as Johnny failed to convince her to send someone else. This is a part I've seen criticised on Twitter. I don't know if there's anything genuine to that, or if it's just the usual crowd overreacting as they always do. And no, it's not because Kenshi's in his post-time skip form here, when he was in his younger form when the events surrounding this were depicted back in issue 1, unless he had another undercover mission in the Red Dragon after he was already exposed. During the extraction, a woman with an RPG showed up and Sonya had to shoot her in front of her daughter to save the evac chopper. The point of the scene is self-reflection from Sonya, seeing herself in the woman prioritising heavy artillery over her own daughter. My issue is the child
That's a weird thought.
contrived rather than the perceived insensitivity of depicting a Muslim terrorist in Pakistan, I guess? Or maybe it's how it doesn't look like northern Pakistan according to one of my Pakistani friends. We get the whole "I never knew, you never asked" exchange, even though Johnny couldn't have known to ask Sonya. Still, she has serious
Johnny, what do you expect?
Cassie for prioritising work over her. And if you're familiar with MKX's story, you'll recognise that this is the same lesson Sonya had to learn there too. Granted, this version is
Tough love is not the best love?
for spending more time on it and being more introspective than the game. Maybe they just had more time here since Sonya's a lead character, not a supporting one like in the game. Jackie is then revealed to have been taken over by the Blood Code, and red bodysuit Scarlet infects Cassie too. Hanzo
Great.
pummels Havoc, but he's highly resilient, as we know from Deception. Havoc says he wants friendship, and his goal is to kill the gods to liberate the realms from order. He claims that even if Hanzo wants to die, Scorpion won't let him, like he was talking to Eddie Brock. Despite holding Hanzo like he's about to break his neck, Havoc instead runs his hand through his guts. Maybe this is just emulating modern fatalities, with 3 different killing blows being redundantly performed. Hanzo dies and Takeda is allowed to leave. The issue ends with the Alliance arriving on the island, where Reiko and Scarlet sick the possessed Cassie and Jackie on them. This brings us into the final arc, Blood Island. Sonya easily dispatches Cassie while Johnny gets beat severely by Jackie. While Kotal fights Reiko, Scarlet fixes Devora's blood colour, though it weirdly looks closer to the MK11 shade than the MKX one. Also
Yes.
weird is Devora acknowledging Scarlet absorbing blood through her skin while Scarlet is wearing the black bodysuit. Is this some anime power limiter shit? You can't just acknowledge how ill-fitting the new costume is for the character without offering up some kind of explanation for it. Reiko rips Devora in half and then Melina's forces arrive. Scarlet seems to think Reiko won't betray her, even though she's working more with Havoc than Reiko. Is it just an act, even though Reiko's not paying attention to her right now, so she doesn't need to? She then declares herself Shao Kahn's daughter, and we all know how that turned out. Then, with help from Ermac...
No, I don't...
declares herself Shao Kahn's daughter, and we all know how that turned out.
Sacred Seed of Okay, that's something new I didn't know about.
Then, with help from Ermac, Melina rolls through Scarlet's legs and destroys them. And yes, it looks just as silly as you'd imagine. I mean, I know this is a thing she can do in the games, but I don't know, making it a canonical thing that happens just seems weird. You know, there are things you can accept in gameplay that you can't in cutscenes. It's like that. Scarlet then acknowledges it as a brutality, which is also silly. And that's the last we see of her, despite Melina opting not to kill her. She apparently dies off screen sometime between this and MK11.
Why?
Baraka, Scarlet, all Outworld champions long since gone.
Kotal uses the
Kinda weird.
No fury phrase, and Reiko turns it into like the blood god. Cringe. Melina then starts using Daddy's hammer in battle. Cringe. The Shao Kahn then arrive, led by Queen Shiva. Yeah, this is where that started. Fortunately, she isn't the feminist parody she became in MK11 yet. She opts to wait to see the outcome before intervening. Takeda arrives at the Sky Temple where Fujin's been impaled by Raiden, who took the daggers. Reiko then flashes back to his history. A goddess statue claimed he would rule. He claimed Shao Kahn adopted him and made him his heir, which is why no one proposed he take over after the Outworld tournament, and why he left the Outworld throne to be contested by Melina and Kotal when he apparently had the most legitimate claim to it. This is another fine example
Makes
of
no
MK
sense.
just introducing things that aren't thought out at all and just raise so many questions with regards to the story that's all.
Yeah, that still was a weird kind of thing, the Jade and Coral Khan thing. That was kind of odd. And turn-off-ish.
Been told, because this and that don't line up at all, and this is why I complain about the continuity all the goddamn time. After Khan died, Havoc approached Reiko and gave him a taste of the blood code. I'm not sure if this is implying Havoc's been controlling him since, or just manipulating him. Either way, it's clear Havoc
Kinda
is
both.
the true mastermind behind everything. Raiden then arrives and wins the battle for Havoc to close out the issue. Issue 10 opens
some
with
reason.
the Alliance being captured as Devora secretly reforms on the beach. Havoc says there are 7 Kamidogu despite there only being 6 realms represented. They could have been a little clever here and made the 7th be the Kamidogu of Vaeternus, realm of the vampires, but the 7th goes completely unexplained. Of course.
Okay.
Sonya and Johnny, Kotal, Melina and Ermac are being drained of their blood while Havoc monologues and taunts Sonya like a Bond villain. I'm not entirely sure this personality fits him. Reiko drinks the blood and half of it goes down his front like a toddler. Back at the Sky Temple, Fujin says he can't go with Takeda since he needs to protect the Jinsei, which raises the question of, during MKX when Raiden went off to find out what was going on with the amulet, was Borai Cho the one left in charge? Where was Fujin?
You left the drunk guy in charge?
Where Fujin explains where he was. Fujin, you fuck up. Where were you? Oh, I was doing this. Alright, fair enough. Or, that's not good enough. Fuck you, I kill you now. Come on guys, it's not difficult. Instead, he gives Takeda his proper Shade-Eyed Yu gear, which I guess was just lying around in the Sky Temple, and he sends him on his way. And then Fujin is gone.
Which is
from the
way
story,
better.
and we have no idea where he was between this and Shinnok's return. Now, as Reiko transforms into his full god form,
Super
I have to
Reiko.
comment on a subjective thing. To me, it just seems wrong that a god, even a lesser god, could be controlled like Raiden is. I can't really explain it, so I won't.
Raiden is Reiko's
I think it wouldn't be
bitch.
possible, and I feel it weakens the character somewhat. Still, I can't stay mad at that face. Havoc stops Reiko from killing any of the so-called champions, a term that isn't really explained, citing his desire to study Johnny and Sonya and the benefit of publicly executing the leaders. He instead gains sustenance from 100 Tarkatans and then he melts. The real purpose of all of this was to obtain Shinnok's amulet somehow. It's just inside Reiko's
Which
brain
makes
because
no
of the ritual,
sense.
I think. Havoc sinks Shiva's ship, and we're subjected to a comedy bit where Havoc says it would be exciting if the ship had explosives on board, and then it explodes and the possessed Cassie and Jackie high-five, presumably being psychically commanded to do so by Havoc.
Foreshadow.
He drowns, but Shiva manages to save him. Havoc has the possessed infect the champions while he attempts to use Ermac's souls to charge the amulet, his plan being to destroy the Netherrealm because death is order and order is death. I don't really get it. Takeda interrupts him to set up issue 11. Honestly, this whole scheme doesn't really suit a cleric of chaos, or at least the methodology. The whole direct
It seems like the logic of like the daggers play a role because these guys go evil, then they infect other people to go evil, and then I don't even know who's good and who's bad anymore. It's very confusing at this point.
control thing is way too orderly and would probably suit Hotaru's faction more. I think genuinely that if you took Quan Chi's schemes from Defenders of the Realm and Conquest, where he infects the heroes with magic that makes them their worst selves so they fight and turn on each other, it would be more fitting for him.
True.
Shiva washes up on the island and now has blank yellow eyes because art consistency isn't a thing in this comic.
No.
Devora kills some Red Dragon members as one cries, and even Devora now has blank yellow eyes. Takeda fights his future teammates and comments how they're cute. It's a shame we never had a bit where he and Jackie reminisce that their first meeting had her trying to kill him. For some reason,
that would have been funny.
Havoc panics when he realizes Melina's not there, but then she teleport kicks Takeda in the face and nothing comes from it. I don't think he's just toying.
Not
with
even
Takeda,
relevant.
He looks too genuinely surprised. As the veterans beat on him, Havoc tries to turn Takeda. Then we enter Cringe City as Hanzo is confronted by Scorpion inside his own mind. And their exchange is fucking atrocious. Get over yourself! Vengeance is mine! Hanzo's line is bad enough, but what the fuck is Scorpion on about? Vengeance against Hanzo? I think is a reference to his intro from 2011.
Vengeance will be mine.
Yeah.
Work, Sean. Stop it. He then references variations to mock Hanzo's use of the spear. Havoc tells Takeda to choose his destiny, only for Shiva's group to arrive with Eren, Reptile and Ferritor. Yes, the B-listers are here to take on the A-listers. Eren says it's less of a rescue mission and more of a suicide squad because we can't go one fucking page without some awful dialogue or pointless references. Devora incorrectly refers to herself as I, prompting Kotal to punch red blood out of her mouth. Why is blood colour such a goddamn issue for this series now? Takeda manages to steal the amulet from Havoc's hand
because
then
children
falls over nothing like a bumbling buffoon. Hanzo accepts the Hellfire for justice and does his fatality from the game on Scorpion. It's impressive how quickly this whole comic just completely fell apart and stopped making sense in the final third. Hanzo rips off Havoc's head, which has been looking increasingly like a Mars Attacks alien, and teleports away with him. Reptile also has red blood, not surprised anymore, and Kintaro's head is ripped off by Sonya at the last possible second. The Blood Code releases its grip on everyone, and Takeda blames Raiden for keeping secrets, even though him being honest about the daggers really...
That's something Raiden does on a daily basis, is hold secrets. He did that pretty much in the entire MK9 thing. Oh, I predict this is going to happen. It cracked. Oh, I didn't expect that to happen. Maybe this is going to happen. Cracked. Like, Raiden is terrible. It's all his fault.
They such key roles in stopping this threat to all the realms, and yet they're not even major players after this. Takeda gets probably the least spotlight of all the combat kids in MKX, and Hanzo is treated as no more important than Sub-Zero in MKX. Sonya and Cassie make up, again going through the same arc they do in the game, and Ermac finally turns against Melina, but his accusations of her being impetuous and Outworld needing proven leadership
I like the design of that.
have no connection to the events of the comic, since both Melina and Kotal's actions got them captured and possessed. Raiden, Sonya and Kotal establish the Reiko Accords mentioned in the game, and Kotal turns over the nukes to her. Probably not the best idea in hindsight.
2 words, bitch. Nuclear weapons.
Sonya, you can't just nuke Outworld. Raiden says he won't keep hold of the amulet or it might corrupt him again, despite the amulet not having such a power prior to him.
I mean, last time you did bring a helicopter to the same realm and you see what happened with that one. MK9 reference.
11, and it being the blood code that corrupted him, not the amulet. Sony says the SF can hide it where no one will find it, but I don't think we ever learned where she put it before it fell into Melina's hands. Maybe this was
in Toys R Us
season that never happened. Hanzo arrives at the gates of the Netherrealm, never mentioned before, where
Moloch and Draman
tells him to get over here, and I'm just glad this damn thing is almost over. Issue 12 is the Aftermath issue. Shut the fuck up. Jackie returns home where Jax hands her a gun despite the crazed look in her eyes. She says she'd only hold a gun if she joined the Special Forces, even though, again, Jax broke Johnny's jaw when Jackie joined because he was so against it.
True.
Try saying that one 5 times fast. And Jackie says Jax came back from hell for his family despite him not meeting his wife until he was recovering after coming back from hell. Also, Vera's skin is way darker here than earlier. She almost looked to be of Native American descent earlier.
It's the design of the comics.
Spending some time with her mother until Sonya starts prioritizing work over family again. While Takeda buries the shared idea, Hanzo returns, escaping his fight with Moloch because Scorpion is proven to be weaker than the 2 Oni. This scene highlights how bad you have to feel for Hanzo. His entire clan is annihilated due to his failure. He rebuilds it with people he specifically relates to as a survivor. They are all slaughtered by one of their own, leaving only himself and one apprentice alive. He then rebuilds again, and they help him make the biggest mistake of his life. Then they're all just gone again again in MK11, so they probably got wiped out a third time. And of course,
Yeah.
this second annihilation is never mentioned anywhere else in the series. I get that the loss of the clan frees Hanzo and Takeda up to journey alone without having to excuse the clan from taking part or have them constantly be around. But having them all die a second time was not the way to go. It should have been
Is
set in
it?
the early days when there aren't that many members. A lot of them survive but are too injured to go with Hanzo and Takeda. They leave them in the care of another character, let's say Serena, who wants to make up for helping to destroy the original Shiraidu, and then
Yep.
it's just a setback for the second clan, not the end of it that prompts a third incarnation. Back in Hell, Quan Chi stomps Havoc's head and makes absurd claims about Havoc promising to turn over the amulet in return for Nitara's blood magic. What the fuck did Sean think Nitara was? He then has Katana
No one knows.
Moloch while he kills Dramin. Kinda funny that Quan Chi's intro animation suggests he's the one who killed Moloch, seeing how he's holding a sword and Moloch's neck is still bleeding. That animation is debatably canon, so it can be forgiven, but
Well, maybe Quan Chi was the leader. He'd say he wanted the head. So, you know, he said, Katana, give me the head. I got the head now.
I think it's still worth bringing up. Quan Chi welcomes the two monks back, but we've no idea from where. The actual consequences of the comic turn
Where
out
they
to be
come
this
from,
incident
no one
inspiring
knows.
Devorah to defect to Quan Chi's side for some reason. Borai Cho meets with Kung Jin and calls Lao his uncle, which is where that fucking stupid shit started. Why did no one correct Sean back then? We could have avoided that inaccuracy making its way into the games if they had. Jin hands Mr. Raicho a USB stick with a skull and crossbones on it because subtlety has no place in modern MK.
Yeah, because I'd say definitely they had USB drives back in the time of Mortal Kombat like that. They had technology like that. Perfect.
They journey to the Cyber Linkway facility, which Sub-Zero infiltrates in an extended side-scrolling sequence with some poses coming straight from MK3. He uploads.
Yeah, I like the outfit of MK3, one of my favorite outfits in that of the Sub-Zero.
He's captured and brought before Sector and Cyrax. Sub-Zero says you can never delete someone's humanity, which explains why he mercilessly kills so many forcefully converted Lin Kuei on his way down here.
Yeah.
Oops. Cyrax turns against Sector, and it's implied he and Sub-Zero are the only ones in the entire clan who weren't on board with the cyberization, which I find very hard to believe. Unless these are all...
Well, technically, Cyrax almost didn't want to join the Lin Kuei Cyber Initiative. The way they did it on MK9, it's like, he's like, oh, I'm gonna go my own way. All of a sudden, I'm a robot. How you doing? Like, what was the relevancy of that?
But then where are the original Lin Kuei? This probably should have gotten a full issue to fill in these gaps instead of just 2/3.
True.
Sector has the upper hand. Sub-Zero says he was holding back and just wins immediately.
And then he said,
Here's
screw you,
my family
Sector.
loads of shit. Cyrax is designated as the new Grand Master and decides instead of getting restored like in the old timeline, he'll just die to give the Lin Kuei a fresh slate. Ignoring that if he'd disqualify it from a fresh slate, so would Sub-Zero since he was a Lin Kuei too.
I'm a guy. Thank you, forever. What?
Sub-Zero survives the explosion with an ice field or
Why was nostalgia in this whatever.
or something, freezes Bo's arm, shatters ice that appears around his head between panels, and then says he'd frozen him because of the heat? This really
And then
not
made him
conveyed
puke.
well at all. A few weeks later, Frost and a bunch of others arrive at Raiden's behest to join the new Lin Kuei. It's all played like a comedy bit, and it doesn't work. Goro is then seen meeting with Dagon and suggests that there's a connection between the Red Dragon and Onaga, even though there isn't. Goro
No.
offers Kenshi for Dagon's aid, suggesting he tracked him down and beat him without arms. This was supposed to lead to the next season where Goro would become the vessel for Onaga and be killed, which is acknowledged by some MK11 intros, meaning even though it was never created, it's still canon.
Did Goro become Onaga's vessel?
Yes, and he nearly scorched Outworld.
However, the comic was never continued beyond this point. The comic
Which was
itself
sad.
presumably only existed at all because the comic tie to Injustice did far better than anticipated. The difference is that Injustice had some intrigue to lure people in. What happened in those 5 years where everyone was fighting? MKX offered far less to get people to pick up the comic, and its story was not very interesting. It ended here, and I can't say I'm sorry to see it end. Beyond the myriad errors in the story, both with the games and within itself, the comic was just not that well written. It's full of terrible dialogue, cringe-worthy repeated use of classic phrases that would make Malibu Smoke blush. It repeats story beats from the game, brings in classic characters just to kill them off instead of trying something new with them in this
Suha
new
deserved it.
timeline, and overall really offers very little of interest for fans and has no value as a standalone piece, the latter proving to be a major strength of the Injustice comic. Even the art was hugely inconsistent, going from artist to artist and feeling like they didn't even look over the previous guy's work before they took over, giving the book little consistency in its look. Of course, the art itself was fine, regardless of artist, and I'm quite fond of Dexter Soy's stylization, particularly with her. I just wish the book was more consistent in this aspect. But then, that's probably the price you pay when the artist has to draw the equivalent of around 10 pages per week. If you like the comic, that's fine, I don't care. I just don't think it really has anything to offer to make it worth reading, and I'm certainly not planning to reread it ever again. If you want to know more about where the book's story was intended to go, History Behind the Warrior managed to get the details from Sean, so go check out his video.
I think the relevancy, the way I look at... Hold on, is there more?
If you liked this video...
Oh, that's just everything else. I think the relevancy, they made more the relevant to the comic and the video game in a way. I think it would have been a better comic if they did reference more to the video game than they did on their own side stuff, because I was going to say, once, like you said before, some of the characters that are not even mentioned in the Mortal Kombat X game are very irrelevant. Like, Reiko wasn't really mentioned until Mortal Kombat 1, and characters like Havoc as well. It just seems there's very characters that were just not really talked about, and there should be characters that should be talked about. I think it could have been more designed better, but like he said, the comics just changed drastically in each volume, and it should have just been more consistent. But overall, I mean, if you guys enjoyed the comic, I recommend find a comic on Amazon or whatever. I haven't read it in years, and I probably don't plan on doing it, but otherwise, guys, if you enjoy stuff like this, guys, please check out the Force Snake, subscribe to his channel. He will do more he does other stuff which I just subscribed just now, just to make sure, and I'm gonna look more into more videos of Mortal Kombat history and all that stuff, guys. If you enjoy stuff like this, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, guys. This is Michael signing out.